I am not in that sector, but I hear many people complaining that they cannot get information technology jobs anymore. That makes complete sense to me. These jobs are either outsourced cheaply to India or Eastern Europe, or they get replaced by artificial intelligence. A simple personal anecdote. A graphic designer in the United States asked me for $300 and 2 days to design a company logo. I found a young woman from Bangladesh on Fiverr who did it for $25 in 30 minutes after multiple adjustments. The United States-based designer cannot compete with that in the mid to long term. Recently, I was offered a $100 promotional artificial intelligence-generated video for my trucking company, and I was blown away by the samples. They are very realistic, can recreate foreign accents, landmarks, landscapes, facial expressions, and can imitate aerial footage from a drone. It is top-quality work, far more than I need. That is a basic example. I understand some information technology professionals will say, that is not true. I make $500,000 per year, but there are millions of such professionals in the United States alone, and only a small fraction do very well. Not even 5 years ago, everyone urged, learn to code. Today, I see former information technology professionals driving for Uber and working in retail. What is your opinion, experience, or observation? Another observation of mine, I call clients to bid on loads, and I increasingly hear voice robots, speech generators, or artificial intelligence answering and giving load details. They are still not perfect, but they answer questions accurately, provide details, and overall are already better in quality than overseas Indian or Filipino call center services. Story 1. Difference between technology, big technology companies, consumer technology, and business-to-business technology. I'd say entry-level jobs are drying up, which is a warning call for the industry. There is still a demand for experienced individuals, but hiring budgets are tighter than they once were, and outsourcing to remote workers in lower-cost countries is becoming popular again. It is not quite dying so much as course-correcting back to the equilibrium it had before the artificial intelligence bubble, much like when the dot-com bubble burst. Buzz around the trendy new investment term died out, and so did the cash flow. People who overbuilt had to downscale appropriately. The industry did not fully collapse, but there was definitely a period when the supply of workers was greater than demand. This will likely happen again once the artificial intelligence bubble bursts, until the next trendy type of technology to invest in appears. Story 2. The technology market has largely collapsed for new graduates. Currently, companies are hiring only experienced candidates. Investors want a return on investment immediately. New hires need to perform effectively with minimal training, which is challenging for junior engineers. While artificial intelligence cannot replace experienced senior engineers, it can replace junior engineers. A senior engineer using artificial intelligence can be as effective as senior engineers who previously worked with junior engineers. However, senior engineers eventually seek higher compensation, and because they are in demand, they may move to other companies. Not hiring junior engineers carries its own risks as well. This is a challenge for future executives to address. Story 3. It is both bad and not bad at the same time. Companies overhired at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. My sister started at Google during that time, and between signing her offer and starting, they hired about 15,000 people. Most of the major companies did this. At the same time, many people were entering the field in large numbers. Many who were not qualified obtained certifications within 6 months from boot camps and then earned $100,000 from some company. I have worked with many of these people. In my opinion, only one had ever been a good developer. For the most part, companies hired massive numbers of people who were not qualified for the jobs they were assigned. They did this because money was cheap and their competitors were doing the same. Now, money is not cheap and many developers are being laid off. The job market is flooded with people who probably should not be in the field. This creates a strange market dynamic. Many people are applying to jobs, but many are not good developers. It makes it difficult to get noticed as a candidate and difficult for companies to find good developers. Inevitably, things will level out. Hiring standards will rise, less qualified developers will self-select out, as will some good developers. The artificial intelligence hype will decrease as it becomes clear that programming is a fairly complex task and current artificial intelligence models are not close to replacing developers. It is uncertain how long this will take. Maybe a year or two or perhaps 5. It is a tough time for both companies and developers. The market is challenging, but the fundamentals are not as bad as people think. It is simply a combination of situations creating this rough period. Story 4. I know there are many factors involved, but I think it is mainly the market correcting itself. Companies hired excessively during the pandemic, and people thought they could learn to program by attending a boot camp for 3 to 6 months. This caused the market and colleges to be filled with people who lacked the competence or interest in computer science and programming. When funding dried up for technology companies, they realized they could not afford to hire so many people who did not have the skills or capabilities to be good programmers. It is unfortunate that people promoted the idea that coding and programming are for everyone when they are not. I am in the field now, and I do not believe I am smarter than the average person, but my interest in programming has helped me succeed. Imagine if another difficult field, like physics, were marketed to people in the same way at the same time, they would face the same situation. Story 5. I do not think the technology industry is collapsing. I think the technology boom is just coming to an end. In the past, companies would hire just about anyone with some programming experience. Now, they are realizing that a competent and driven engineer can outperform for entry-level engineers. The best value for your money would be to double the pay of the experienced engineer to keep them motivated and let go of the entry-level employees. The industry is still going strong, but it is probably harder than ever to break into. Story 6. From my observation, the collapse is not necessarily that bad in itself, but since nothing compares to technology salaries before, and all the technology jobs were in high cost of living areas, losing your job often means having to move out immediately before you get swamped in debt. I know some others who were not living in such places, and they were able to bear that job loss much easier. Additionally, you face extra difficulties if you purchased a mortgage. Story 7. I have a little over 20 years of experience in the information technology field, with roughly half of that time in middle and senior management positions. I do not have a college degree. As I search for a new job, I encounter being overqualified for lower-level positions, and recruiters ask me to change job titles on my resume. Conversely, some prospective employers screen me out because my information technology career does not begin with a degree. Many companies are laying off information technology professionals, so all of us are competing for approximately 200 positions that may or may not be real. It is maddening. Story 8. Yes, it is bad, but it has always been a boom and bust cycle strongly tied to the strength of the overall economy and interest rates. We saw this in 2001 and 2009. Once investment starts to pick up in technology in the next 2 to 3 years, they will hire aggressively again. After 6 to 7 years of overhiring catches up to them, they will reduce staff again. This cycle repeats. Story 9. I am hiring for 3 software engineer positions, but cannot find anyone who demonstrates the required level of competence. Story 10. It has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. There was a change to U.S. tax law in 2023 that changed how software is depreciated and tracked as a company asset. As a result, it is more expensive now, so they are reducing the number of workers. I do not think this trend will continue for long, especially when they need people to clean up all the unusable problems that artificial intelligence and a team of offshore engineers created. Story 11. It is not collapsing. It is not terrible. The entry levels are flooded with people who want to be in technology simply for money but are not able to set themselves apart from the crowd. The field requires constant learning and growth, and too many think they can get a degree or a few certifications and get a job without any effort. Story 12. Offshoring to cheaper countries is not a new practice. It has been occurring to some extent for 2 decades. Artificial intelligence mainly enables people to accomplish more tasks, but it still requires supervision and correction of its outputs. I work at a major information technology company that is well known, and although there have been some targeted layoffs in recent years, the overall number of employees continues to grow. Do not rely on anecdotes. Refer to employment data and statistics. Story 13. Source: Senior software engineer with about 30 years of experience. Anecdotal maybe, but from what I have experienced, the job market is not bad. It is just really hard to find talented people. Every time we post an opening, we get flooded with thousands of auto-filled resumes, mostly from India, that try desperately to match the job description but are obvious spam. Of the non-spam resumes, there are a few dozen by real people who, upon phone screening, do not actually have the skills listed. After months of searching, we might find a couple of people who fit the bill or none. Part of the problem is that a few years ago, they told kids to go into coding, so they did, thinking that is where the money is. Except we do not need coders. We do not need people who barely passed through a computer science degree copying Python code from chat generative pre-trained transformer. We need actual engineers who get engineering degrees, and that is hard to do. Also, I would not consider graphic design to be a distinct technology job anymore, and I have been encouraging people not to major in it. For the last several years, we have never hired graphic designers. Instead, people on the marketing team have just been getting better and better at Photoshop, InDesign, and other tools. You express amazement at the sophistication of artificial intelligence tools and chatbots. Well, those tools are being developed by engineers, not coders. I am working on one myself right now. Story 14. I work in technology, and honestly, it has always been challenging. Many companies I worked at would fire people erratically and without reason, even between 2016 and 2020. One place even texted someone after they left the company just to tell them how they were doing better without them. I also worked at Amazon, and it almost felt like they were looking for an excuse to fire people whenever they got the chance. I was on a team for 2 years where I saw about 80% turnover. In my opinion, the secret is to find a relaxed, remote, friendly, mid-sized company and stay there until it grows too large, then leave and repeat. I like the job I have now. Story 15. It is relatively less in demand, but it is still better than other industries. It was very active, especially during the pandemic, and now it is just cooling off. It is nowhere near the situation where former information technology sector professionals drive Uber and work in retail, as you claim. Story 16. No. What happens now is that many inexperienced managers believe they can do what developers do, and more with the help of artificial intelligence, but cheaper, faster, and better. The next wave of hiring will occur when they realize they need actual people to clean up the mess created with the help of their unreliable artificial intelligence tools. Story 17. I recently decided to change careers in 2022. I obtained certifications and began job searching. It took me a year and a half to secure a position. Story 18. It's overblown. There is no technology sector anymore. Everything is technology. Find one industry that does not heavily rely on technology. Many places have had to get rid of their worst performing employees. Technology is not easy, and it is not for everyone, but many people have convinced themselves of that. Artificial intelligence is nice and fun, but the vast majority of my job is not creating images or pictures or similar tasks. It involves planning, discussing, prioritizing, and using all my knowledge. Artificial intelligence is still very consistently wrong or out of date on many things. Story 19. I work in a related field, hardware integration. At the moment, artificial intelligence hype is overblown and distracting from the real issues such as higher interest rates, geopolitical uncertainty, changes in complex tax laws, and market saturation. Much of what is happening in technology is normal industry maturation occurring at the speed of technology. Most growth industries eventually reach a point where maximizing short-term profitability becomes more feasible than long-term sustained growth. Companies cut speculative projects and focus on core profitability. Many large technology companies approved numerous projects but have since withdrawn funding from many of them. Currently, artificial intelligence is being used experimentally in many applications, but it has not yet significantly impacted the job market. It remains primarily a tool to increase the productivity of skilled professionals. People do use artificial intelligence, but a combination of artificial intelligence and an experienced professional remains noticeably better in most fields and for most tasks. The concerning news for the near future is that artificial intelligence is likely to increase the skills gap between mid-career professionals and entry-level professionals. If an artificial general intelligence singularity occurs where machines surpass human capabilities, Many people are likely to lose jobs. Story 20, my industry. All the big Tier 1 technology companies shed staff once a year to stay lean and look good on their yearly balance sheets. Around the fourth quarter, you always hear of Cisco closing departments they started that year because they have not worked out the way they thought. The year 2024 was a little different as many companies tried to reduce staff to lower costs so they could invest in artificial intelligence. Dell was brutal with this, and I was a Dell-funded head at the time, so I had front-row tickets to it all. The thing is, it's not unusual. Technology is a competitive environment. Pay is higher, so more people want to be in it. The key is to be very good at your job, stay on top of your certifications if that is something your company values, and don't be afraid to promote yourself around the business. Generally, when these big companies close departments or shed staff, they take the good staff members and place them somewhere else. Story 21. I still maintain that we could probably reduce our level 1 staff and use an artificial intelligence chatbot to handle 90% of the help desk. Part of the reason I think this is due to a steep decline in quality from that department over the past few years. They have become more of a call center than a department with actual skill or knowledge at this point. Story 22. It all depends on which sector of technology. In my world of networking and cybersecurity, lower-level analyst jobs are probably the most competitive they have ever been. Many people are trying to pivot to cybersecurity, including recent college graduates with basic troubleshooting and configuration skills. These skills are rapidly being automated, or companies are leveraging new artificial intelligence to reduce the need for large Tier 1 teams and make those teams leaner. It is hard to stand out if you are relatively new to the field with only a college education or basic certifications. However, in cybersecurity, there are still many openings for higher-level positions beyond the initial entry level. The skill requirements for those jobs are increasing and now include more than practical critical thinking. Candidates need to demonstrate significant experience or the ability to do more than just review logs and say, "That looks unusual." Story 23. The bottom of the market falls out first. The top remains fine. People have had the same conversation about graphic designers for 2 decades. You are buying services at the bottom of the market, so that is what you notice. There is still just as much of a market for professionals charging $10,000 or more for a logo because those logos come with trademarks, proper consultation, and an entire brand strategy. The last website I sold was $20,000. It is about risk, trust, and availability. The same applies to information technology. I am not outsourcing the server infrastructure for my application to India. If they make a mistake, it is a serious issue. However, you might outsource some of the lower-level and lower-risk services. Story 24. A lot of my technology friends are unemployed. Several friends were laid off from Intel and have not been able to find a job for over a year. Others could potentially be laid off in July. It is a serious situation. Story 25. Many technology companies are currently acting on fear-mongering mostly driven by management. Companies, especially technology companies in general, have been a money pit for many venture capital and angel investors over the last couple of years. Before COVID-19 and during the first year of the pandemic, money was poured in as if it were free, and now investors want to see value in return. The way these companies currently operate is simple. They fire a number of employees to decrease fixed costs and make the company look more profitable. They hire new people once they have achieved their goal, such as raising funds, year-end bonuses, or management appraisals, and the whole cycle starts again. Now, with artificial intelligence being the current hype similar to the dot-com bubble, and the shift to an applications and application programming interface-first approach, companies expect people with limited experience to be able to join quickly and become productive within weeks, which rarely happens. They want junior employees to have the experience of senior employees for the price of interns. The result is that employees who survive layoffs work overtime and become burned out. Most eventually leave for another company, where the cycle repeats. To answer the question, is there a collapse of jobs in the technology industry? No, there are still many jobs, but human resources is focused only on a specific group of people. Keep in mind that human resources works with and for management, not for the employees, which is a separate topic. Yes, you can get services cheaper abroad, such as in Asia, but the main challenge is the quality of understanding of the local market by the people executing the work. Most companies that replace customer service with outsourcing or artificial intelligence experience a massive drop in customer satisfaction due to the lack of human interaction when serious issues or questions arise. Story 26. What I have seen in my small bubble. Many people who have been working in information technology and cybersecurity for more than a decade have no formal education or industry certifications. They have learned more in the real world than you ever could in a classroom and did not need them. Now, as the field becomes more established, employers both large and small must have a bond on their information technology and cybersecurity staff. This should not be a big deal. If you have ever worked a cash register, you have probably had a bond placed on you. The issue is that no matter how skilled and experienced someone is, no insurer will put a bond on someone without formal education or certification. As I mentioned before, this is just a handful of people from my personal experience. Two stand out. One person I know shifted in information technology toward purchasing and procurement. She has been doing that for more than 5 years. At the end of the last fiscal year, her employer merged with a larger organization. She was fortunate to keep her job, but they put her on probation. In short, she must finish at least an associate degree by the end of this year or they will have to let her go. Another person has been the local administrator for a small branch of a multinational pharmaceutical organization, similar to a Fortune 500 company. He had been doing the same job since the network was wired before wireless networking. They pressured him about industry certifications for 10 years, but he never took them seriously or pursued them. About 2 years ago, the organization moved the majority of their information technology needs to the cloud and a major internet service provider and internet services security provider. They reduced their organic information technology staff by more than 50%. Because he did not have any formal education or certifications, he was one of the first to be let go. It took him 5 months and hundreds of sent resumes to realize that no one was going to hire him without the education and certifications. The last time I spoke to him, he had obtained the Microsoft Cloud certifications for Azure and Microsoft 365 and was doing part-time or temporary work at a much lower wage than he had been used to. Story 27. It is challenging for young information technology workers. Older employees are still employable, but it is only a matter of time before they are also displaced. I estimate I have 2 to 3 years remaining. After that, I will join the many who are unemployed. Story 28. Is it collapsing? I get new offers from United States companies every week. It is growing. My friends and colleagues in the United States are all getting higher pay too. Information technology sector. Story 29. It's bad, but I see a lot of blue-collar workers celebrating as if they won something because the office workers were demoted. Nothing will get better for those workers. The last remaining technical staff using artificial intelligence assistants will find ways to work harder and pay less than ever before. Amazon Home Services offers all your home maintenance needs in one easy monthly subscription. It has a nice ring to it. Story 30. There was massive overhiring. Then there were cuts to correct that, followed by cuts to improve profit margins because companies expected a recession. It is not good, but if you are skilled, you will land on your feet. There are too many low-skilled coders and technology workers in general who should not be doing this for a living. This happens in all industries. It is time it happens to technology. Story 31. It is hard to say. I provide coding tools to 1,000 developers and only have 80% adoption. There is still a wide gap between top performers and medium performers. The best will always manage. I fear for everyone else. I tell leadership that if Company A has 10 developers using these tools and Company B has 20, Company B is still going twice as fast. Artificial intelligence replaces people. From what I can see so far, not using artificial intelligence at scale. Story 32. If you cannot be bothered producing a video, why do you think your market would be bothered to watch your video? Artificial intelligence-generated marketing copy is lazy and signals low value to your customer. If you are competing to offer the lowest price, then sure, go ahead. But if you are trying to signal high-quality, trustworthy trucking, then make your own authentic video. Story 33. An information technology professional is not the same as a coder. Information technology is generally on the expense side of the business, whereas for a technology company, a coder is often involved with producing the product. There is outsourcing involving coders, but having them in the same time zone or office has many advantages. I will not be expanding my United States teams because I will always want some close enough for much of the iterative work, but overseas is much cheaper, and there are some good people out there. With the top professionals here, they earn much more and are generally worth it in productivity and inventiveness. When you reach the lower tier, around 25%, they may be at a disadvantage because many overseas coders are very good. The top half here do not have much to worry about. This situation applies to any business that can be done remotely. If you can work from home, you are much easier to replace with someone else. Story 34. The future economy needs jobs that require 2 to 4 months of training instead of 2 to 4 years costing tens of thousands of dollars. Investing in education makes little sense when it does not provide a reasonable period of benefit. Story 35. It's not that bad. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google companies overhired during COVID-19. There are plenty of regular software jobs available. Did the invention of the calculator make mathematicians go extinct? Story 36. Artificial intelligence can do some great basic writing and programming, but the ideas and direction are yours, as are the bugs. Be an ideas person and understand what is possible, then move into new areas where artificial intelligence and humans together can really shine far brighter than one technician on their own. Artificial intelligence is an opportunity like the internet was. Adapt and thrive. Story 37. The combination of events in job markets generally follows a pattern. When there is a shortage of professionals in a field, those already working in that field become highly sought after and receive higher pay. This attracts more people to enter the field, eventually leading to an oversupply of workers. A relatively new factor in employment is the ability to work remotely. This not only increases the geographic range from which employers can hire, but also reduces the commitment required to accept a job. 10 years ago, if you lived in New York and wanted a technology job in California, you had to relocate. Not everyone was willing to do that, but now relocation is not necessary. These two factors do not mean there are fewer technology jobs. Rather, there is more competition due to a wider talent pool. Most importantly, company leaders are making a critical mistake by believing they can fully replace their information technology departments with artificial intelligence. While artificial intelligence may reduce staffing needs or work hours in certain areas, it cannot completely replace an IT department. Story 38. If you are entry-level or just getting into the field, I would look for another field. Between the economy and artificial intelligence taking over, the demand is only for senior engineers with more than 10 years of experience, and the competition is intense. A job that is posted will have thousands of applications within a few hours. Story 39. I don't think the market has collapsed in the slightest. The market is still hot. I don't consider graphic designer to be a technology job though. That sounds like creative work. To be honest, I barely even count information technology professionals as technology jobs. I think of technology jobs as coders and coder-adjacent workers. So we might be thinking of different things. You're thinking of some variety of white-collar work that involves computers on any level. I'm thinking of the technology sector. Story 40. It cannot be that bad. I just had a candidate reschedule an interview at the last minute and then not show up for the rescheduled appointment. I guess they did not need it after being laid off from their last role. Story 41. The Fiverr designer most likely gave you generic clip art or stick design that is not custom in any way except for your company name on it. Each design is given to dozens of other gigs. Expect no revisions or custom design attention. This approach is fine if you are small-time and local, and your brand does not matter. However, it is not a great idea for a company that conducts real business. It is a fast food versus fine dining situation. Information technology jobs are not the same as technology industry jobs. Information technology is an internal business support role, and those non-revenue adjacent jobs tend to be cut first. Technology industry jobs, such as software engineers, sales, and marketing, focus on consumer-facing products. Story 42. The problem is the Federal Reserve has been holding interest rates so high. The technology boom over the past 10 to 15 years happened because of all the easy, cheap leverage that investors could apply to ideas and hope for the best. Everyone is shifting overseas and to artificial intelligence simply because those are the budget options until the Federal Reserve returns some sanity to interest rates. Good for you on getting a company logo for $25 and getting a $100 artificial intelligence advertisement for your company as well. Neither of those skill sets compare at all to building a full-scale software or hardware solution that a business is built around. It is unusual if you are seeing that many former information technology sector professionals driving ride-sharing vehicles or working in retail. As someone deeply involved in the industry, I have seen literally none of that. Most people who earn those kinds of salaries and receive those kinds of stock incentives tend to have cash and shares available that they can easily use to pay bills for the extra couple of months that the slower job market requires. Story 43. It has been a bubble that needed to pop for a while. We all know it. Everyone wants the cushy jobs, and that is not what makes the world go around. Yes, they are needed, but not everyone can have the same job. Story 44. What you are seeing is the result of people finally finding out that at least a third, and probably half, of white-collar workers do not do meaningful work. Blue-collar workers are not any better. They clock in, complete the bare minimum required to appear busy, avoid risks, challenge nothing that existed before they started, and simply occupy a seat. Most are promoted beyond their competence level and have no idea what they should do or how to do it. The same thing is happening in marketing. Many people's default response is, "We cannot do that because it is not our area and the team responsible for it would never allow it." Story 45. I am an outsider looking in. My motivation comes from being an investor and a hobby economic analyst. It seems to me that, on one hand, a lot of the technology hype is bound to disappear, which we are currently seeing. On the other hand, I think there will be a bigger impact from a rotation out of high-risk, highly leveraged businesses. High technology, such as artificial intelligence, represents maximum leverage, leveraging finance, commodities, and knowledge to advance without certainty of what can be achieved or when. The shift is moving back to underinvested fundamental businesses. There have been very few investments in base metals and energy security over the past 40 years. That is where the buzz from phrases like "drill baby drill" and interest in uranium originated. However, in many critical minerals, the Western countries have basically zero production, while obtaining permission and opening a mine has become an endeavor lasting almost 15 years on average. These sectors, neglected but essential, have yet to account for the trillions of dollars conjured up and are, from the point of view of cycle theory, extremely undervalued. Unless technology can capitalize on that wave, I would not be surprised to see more jobs cut and businesses focusing elsewhere until the recent successes of technology have been consolidated. That process can easily take 5 or more years. Story 46. In the cloud sector, the margins are very small due to a combination of numerous providers, budget-conscious or cash-strapped clients, and being charged small fees repeatedly by the cloud providers, such as Microsoft. Staffing is the first thing they reduce after trying to minimize every little expense in cloud billing. Story 47. Every technology company is looking for ways to reduce headcount through artificial intelligence. Anyone who does not learn how to use artificial intelligence will become obsolete. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.